Of November 17th for the Oregon City Commission. This is November 17th, and good evening. I'm Alice Norris, the mayor.
James Mestida, Commissioner.
Greg Neely, Commission President.
Rocky Smith, Commissioner.
Would you please stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda this evening is always a great pleasure, and that is to swear in two new police officers, police new to Oregon City, and will bring our total department complement up to 39 according to Chief. So if all those involved could please come forward, we will administer the oath of office. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our two newest hires for Oregon City Police Department. I'm very pleased to introduce Joe Robinson and Tracy Reed. And they both came up from the Klamath County Sheriff's Office. They've been employed as deputy sheriff since 2002. Tracy graduated from Bethel High School in Spanaway, Michigan, I believe, and he's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I usually a who out there. And Joe is a graduate of the Oregon Institute of Technology, and she has an associate's degree in land surveying, correct? And she has a husband and spouse.
Okay, please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tracy Whelan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the law
that I will uphold the law
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Oregon.
and the state of Oregon.
I will abide by
I will abide by
the law enforcement code of ethics
the law enforcement code of ethics
and the department's rules and regulations,
and the department's rules and regulations,
while faithfully performing
while faithfully performing
my duties as police officer
my duties as police officer
for Oregon City, Oregon.
for Oregon City, Oregon.
Thank you. Welcome
Thank you.
aboard. Okay, did they get the pictures they needed? All right, thank you.
All right.
Please. Just a preview of the coming agenda, the chief informed me that we will likely swear in our 40th officer by the end of the year, so we'll be up to our full complement for which we have funding. Now we'll be The next item on the agenda is citizen comments. Do we have any citizens who signed up to speak this evening? Okay, looking at the agenda, are there any items that any commissioners wish to pull separately? Didn't know why the minutes were not on the consent agenda, but oh, it's just okay. All right, then we will take the items in the order in which they are listed on the agenda this evening. First item on general business is one that. Did you want to say something? You just get in line. Oh, yes, you do. Sorry. We are electronic up here, so the first item on the agenda is one that's of great interest and concern, I know to many of you, and certainly to us, the purchase of Beeston School that we have been talking about for a long time for the much-needed Oregon City Library. And that decision, I think, is going in a different direction this evening, and Commissioner Smith, you need to excuse yourself.
I'm an employee of the Oregon State School District, and so I haven't been participating in the purchase discussion with the Easton building.
Because of conflict of interest. Okay, thank you. So you will watch the proceedings elsewhere? You guys are quiet out there. And also, we wish Commissioner Daphne West well. She's had a very successful surgery and will be back with us by voice, I think, at our next meeting. So, let's talk. Again, we've had 2 work sessions on the changes that we see now after due diligence with Eastham School, and so I'll call on our library director, Maureen Cole, to walk us through the outline of that, and then we'll move into a decision this evening, hopefully.
I wasn't really prepared to walk through a whole bunch of new, because I have no new information. Did you want me to do a summary?
Yes, if you could just do it in encapsulated summary for our vast television audience, I think that would be helpful.
I would love to do that for vast audience.
Context for our discussion.
Yes, all right. So several months ago, we entered into a sales contract with the school district, Oregon City School District, for the purchase of Eastham School, which was contingent upon 2 things: successful due diligence and successful rezoning. So as soon as we entered into that sales contract, we started doing our due diligence work and started sending inspectors and consultants up to Eastham to come back to us with all their engineering reports and everything else. And when that was assembled, what we learned was that the estimated costs of the remodel had gone up significantly. The initial remodel, we planned on doing this in 2 phases, and initially we would remodel between 17 and 20,000 square feet, and that was our original estimate was about $1.9 million. So that went up $700,000 to $2.6 million. And what we learned in that process is that there was also some reduction of flexibility in some of the spaces. Some walls couldn't come out completely, thus reducing our line of sight and open feeling. Certain floors, which we had hoped could bear the weight of tall stacks, could bear less weight than we thought. And in addition, there was quite a bit of deferred maintenance that is eventually going to need to be done by the owner of the building. We included that in our second phase estimates, but there's no guarantee that that work is on a time schedule. It could happen at any time. So that is work that potentially would have to come out of library operating funds. So when all was said and done, we gathered up all this information, and I've made the recommendation to the commission that because of the negative direction of money flow that this is going in, that is no longer my recommendation that we pursue the purchase of Eastham School as the Oregon City's main library, but instead we put a halt to that by indicating to the school district that we are no longer interested, and do an inventory of other options and proceed in that direction.
So as we've discussed at the 2 work sessions, there are many other options. The Friends of the Library and the Library Board are eager to continue to search if we decide to discontinue this contract. So there'll be a new effort that will go in a different direction. So may I have, is there discussion among members, or do you have a motion?
I'm going to make a request, actually. Because we had the representative of the library board spoke to us at a study session, but I think because this is a process that's involved discussions with our advisory committee, I would like to invite them to come up and speak again to the actual commission.
Is that Lynn and Harriet? Or Harriet?
Harriet Schul, the vice chair,
Sit down just a little bit.
the vice chair of the library board. And at our meeting last Wednesday, we reviewed all of the materials and had extensive discussion on Mo's presentation and the cost. And we unanimously recommended to accept her recommendation not to continue the process on Eastham School, that it would just not be a wise investment of money. It's unfortunate because we really need a library, but that's not the site.
Thank you. Question? It's pretty succinct. Yes, so the cost of remodel approaches the cost of building new.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay, I have a motion then from Commissioner Sweeney.
Since this is a commission meeting, I'd also like our city manager to indicate what the financial implications are, and I think you gave us some strong indications of being able to proceed in certain ways, and I'd like you to speak to that.
Well, we're gonna hit the ground running and try to engage our consultant as soon as possible after this meeting tonight to work on future site location. We're also going to be trying to incorporate a public participation component in that search. We've done some preliminary assessment of our budget capacity, and we believe that we can, with our current resources available, we can pay a debt service on a new facility or a reconstructed facility in a range of $6.5 to $7 million. We'll be trying to increase that by leveraging our funds with other partners as they may be available through grants. That could probably get us a library around 20,000 square feet. We'll also be probably looking at modular construction so that we can add on to it later as our capacity, our needs increase over the years.
I thought we were looking at a minimum of 30,000 square feet per library standards. That kind of where we are? Yeah, or more.
Indicate,
40,000, wasn't it?
yeah, that is more like 43,000. But what we were talking about is building what we can afford and then adding. That would be one possible route, you know.
I was giving you an assessment on what I thought we could afford now. A lot of this is dependent on the interest rate because we've looked at interest rates between 3.5, and all of our analyses have been done based on 4 to 4.5. So we may be more competitive. Hopefully we will be on that.
And that's good news to hear that again, because that's exactly what we've been planning for these years. As we looked at all of our facilities, is that we wanted to make sure that Public Works and City Hall and the library could be done without a bond, so that we could save the bond measure for the police facility, for which we couldn't see a stream of revenue. So, I'm glad to hear that. Commissioner Nacita.
Yes, I want to just give kudos to the library staff and the Friends of the Library and the library board for wrestling with these issues, and also for making Carnegie Center a really terrific transitional library, because I'm getting a lot of very positive comments about the library and emails and comments that it's working out well and people enjoy using it. And one of the key comments I've heard is that it lets us make a very deliberative decision on a new site without, the emergency situation that we perceive we were in back in the spring. With that, I will make a motion that the commission discontinue pursuing Eastham School as a library option and move ahead on considering alternative sites.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Nacita, seconded by Commissioner Neely. And just for discussion, Commissioner West submitted a letter that was read at the work session. I don't have it any longer with me. Do you want it read again, or just it indicates that she was be supportive of the proposal before us? Anyone wish it to be read into the record? Okay. Further discussion? No comments? Seeing none, Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Nacita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Right.
Mayor Norris?
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Yes, Commissioner Smith can rejoin us. So, Library Board and Friends of the Library, good luck in your work. I'll be there to help you in January 1. Next, we have Resolution 10.30. This is a proposed solid waste rate adjustment for Oregon City garbage B&B leasing. I see our finance director, Dave Wimmer, coming forward for the staff report. Hi, Dave.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What we have before you is Resolution 1030, which is a request for our garbage franchise fee to have a rate increase. And just give you a little bit of a history of this. We have a 7-year rolling franchise with B&B leasing, and basically we get 4% of their garbage fees that they collect from folks in Oregon City, and that amounts to about $175,000 to $180,000 a year revenue to us, which we put into the city cleanup fund, and we use about 60 or 70,000 of that to pay our own garbage bills, and we transfer some, depending on the year, 80 to 130,000 to the code enforcement fund, which are our parking and park code enforcement people. Then, let's see, what this increase, they're requesting a 4% increase, and to us, that means about $72,000 or $7,200 more a year. So the garbage franchise are the folks that benefit most from this increase, and people from them will be making their presentation here and could ask some questions. As you may recall, several years ago, they came with a fairly large increase, and it was the request of the commission. Some of you folks were on the commission at that time, was to come back more often to smaller increases, and that's what they were doing. And if you don't have any more questions than me, I'll let Mike McCoy, who represents B&B Leasing, and Pam Bloom and Alan Bush are also here from B&B Leasing, but we'll just bring them up and you can grill them.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Come on up to the hot seat. With an introduction like that. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. I'm Mike McCoy, and in going through the rate analysis this year, as Dave Wimmer had explained, we wanted to make sure that we came on an annual basis in order to maintain as small rate adjustments as we possibly could. This year, in terms of looking at our rate adjustments, kind of just going down to the major high points, the primary factor for adjusting the rates is due to increase in disposal fees from Metro, and basically Metro increased their disposal fees by a little over 6%, and on disposal fees, we pass that directly on to the consumer, so there's no profit margin on disposal fees. It's a straight pass-through cost. So if you broke down the components on the 4% rate adjustment, 2.4% is attributable to the disposal fees, and approximately there was some increase in, this won't surprise anyone, in health insurance, and there were some increases in the overall driver's wages. And it's most interesting where the solid waste industry is heading at this point in time, because as a result of the economic situation that we're having in the country, what we're finding out is the market for our recyclables are continuing to head downward. And so as a result of that heading downward, because recyclables are a commodity and we're doing a really good job in terms of recycling, and as a result, consequently, as any commodity goes, there's more product available, and so the price is decreasing. So as a result of that, that has an adverse impact for the cost of disposal, which subsidizes the recyclables. But in essence, that's pretty much it in about a nutshell in terms of what's taken place. And there's some other areas that cause a little bit of increases, but I don't think they're major issues. But nevertheless, there are additional costs because with the recycling and the commingling, you have to put glass in a separate cart as opposed to be able to put gas into your recycling debris. So it creates an extra run where we can't have it automated.
Okay.
And that pretty much is it in a nutshell.
Okay, it's a summary. We've seen it, I think, 2 years ago. Is that right? When you were last year?
No, I was here last year.
Last year, okay. It wasn't that long ago.
I will do that again.
Okay, the only place that I see that we're out of line, I'm referring to the Tri-County Portland Metro area comparative rate. It's on page 10 of the rate proposal, the very last page, I think, is in the 99.5 gallon cart. We are lower than all the other cities, and I'm wondering if that's, often it's supposed to be an incentive to cut down your waste when you raise the cost at the bigger end. But I noticed that we're at $36.90, and that's the lowest rate. So I'm wondering why.
When we did our overall rate design, when we take a look at Oregon City, we don't have as much 90 gallon.
That's why I wondered. There wasn't many.
Yeah, and so what we tried to do in order to maintain the rates as low as possible try and make our adjustments, which we did, Oregon City's predominantly the 35 and the 60.
Okay, well, that's the only rate that I noticed that I thought was out of, it just out of sync with the others.
Sure.
But any questions by commissioners? Commissioner Zeta.
I wanted to make a suggestion. I remember when we did this last year, we had some work sessions on this. It was a bigger issue, obviously, but I did appreciate the ability to sit down and talk. And I also think that with a rate increase, I prefer not to vote on it before holding a public hearing on it. So I wanted to float the idea of continuing this matter and scheduling a public hearing for one of the December meetings before we vote on it. And if, depending on what the commission's wishes are, perhaps a work session as well.
Your effective rate was going to be December 1.
That's correct. That's what we're hoping.
What is the will of the commission?
I guess I don't have a problem with it. Holding on.
I don't care either way. I could vote on it tonight. Is there?
Let's see, the next meeting is December 1.
Right.
So if we held a public hearing, it would also enable you to be able to go into effect that day. So
I mentioned we could even roll it back to December 1 if you could. I mean, I don't think that would be an issue.
Probably not. Okay, that's not an issue. That's not a problem with me. Do you have a issue? Do you have anything that comes to your mind that?
No, if that's what the commission wishes to do, then we're there.
Okay, so let's hold this over. I see 4 people that wish to do that. So we'll have a public hearing and take a vote next meeting then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the proposal. So the next item on the agenda is the purchase of property for park and open space through our Metro grant in the Kenema area. So for the staff report, Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mayor Norris and City Commission. Before you is a proposed real estate agreement for the purchase of about 7.2 acres in the Kenema area. It'd be for park and open space purposes. The amount of the proposed purchase is $120,000 plus shared closing costs. The background on this specific property is that, as you're all well aware, we are receiving the Metro local share allocation from the 2006 Open Spaces bond measure that passed. And as a result of that, we have previously identified as a city, and it was adopted by the commission, that one of the targeted areas was for park spaces for this bond money was specifically in the Kenema area. So this was part of the process of looking at that targeted area. We have identified this specific piece of property and determined that through the process that this was a willing seller. There's some very specific advantages to the property in that obviously it's in the target area, and also, and I've put a number of maps in your report. You can see clearly it's adjacent directly to the existing Metro Kenema Waterloo properties. So there's a nice connection there. It is it's very hilly. It's pretty much would be the purpose would for the most part would be this would be for open space preservation. Wouldn't be very developable, but you might be looking at some trails or some pathways or some things like that, and some potential other uses. But for the most part, what you're looking at is some open space preservation. Let's see, there in our real estate agreement, there's a due diligence period. If this is approved tonight, we have until December 31st to close and purchase the property. During that due diligence period, we would be doing some additional research, such as an environmental investigation of the property, which is pretty typical, and any other issues that we would normally investigate for real estate transactions. And again, the funding would be from the Metro local share dollars that we do have available in the full amount of this purchase. One thing that I need to mention that is not in your staff report, and I'll accept responsibility as an oversight. I think partly it just had to do with timing as well of the transaction coming together relatively quickly, is that our Parks and Rec committee has not had the opportunity to review this and discuss it. They only have become aware of it very recently, just when this became public. Because as you know, we've only been able to discuss this in executive sessions because it's been a real estate negotiation. So I would like to recommend to you, because of that, that our normal process when we purchase park properties is to have our Parks Committee review that and have the opportunity to give you some input before you make a final decision on that. So my recommendation is this. The next meeting of the PRAC committee is on December 2nd. If you approve the real estate agreement tonight, as is indicated in my report, the real estate agreement has basically a blanket clause that allows the city to cancel the contract for any reason at any point before December 31st. With basically nothing to lose. So we have an all-inclusive opt-out. So I would suggest that for timing purposes, my recommendation is still that you approve this agreement tonight, which kind of begins the due diligence period, and that you, I guess, request, staff to take this to PRAC, or just ask that it be reviewed by PRAC, give them the opportunity to report back to you with their input on that, and then before the time that we would close, I would report back to you the PRAC recommendation or PRAC's input, and you would, if their recommendation were something other than going forward, you would have the opportunity to still stop this transaction or take a different direction, or whatever the case may be, or they may be supportive. So that's kind of an additional recommendation. It's not in the written staff report that kind of occurred to me after the fact. So. With that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Are there any questions for our motion? This is property that we have long sought on both edges. Actually, I think it's so cool that we're able to preserve property at both edges of our community. In the Newell Creek Canyon area, I think we've added about 700 acres over the last 8 years. Is that about right?
I think that's
close.
Close to that.
Not just the city, but with Metro, right. And then some property in the Canyon area too. It's great to preserve that. So, yes, Susan Hardy, Paul Edgar, who happens to live in the Canyon area.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Paul Edgar from Oregon City, Kenema. As a land use chair of the Kenema Neighborhood Association, when I was able to read this, I was just pleased. Very honestly, I feel that this was an extremely positive opportunity. I know the land well. The price is excellent. This is a good deal. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Let's make it happen.
All right. Short and sweet. May I have a motion, please?
I have a comment. I'm trying to find there we go.
Right.
I just wanted to make a comment that this opportunity, I agree, is a terrific one, and I've heard from a number of people in my time on City Commission about the opportunities in and around Kenema for park purchases and how strategic they are, especially for connectivity with the rest of the city. And I'd like to commend Mr. Edgar is one of those people who have shared these ideas with me. And I also commend my predecessor in this seat, Damon Mabey, who took me by the shoulder on National Night Out and pointed at the map of the city that was under a tent and said, this is a good opportunity here if it ever comes up. And others too have talked about it at the Kenema picnics and stuff, and it's really good that we have had this opportunity come up. And I'd also like to commend Mr. Archer for bringing this pretty big fish in for us. And with that, I would like to move that the City Commission approves the real estate agreement for a purchase in the amount of $120,000 plus closing costs for approximately 7.2 acres of property in the Kenema area for park and open space purposes, and to direct Mr. Archer to bring this before the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee during the due diligence phase.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Nocita, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Further comment or discussion? Seeing none, Nancy, the vote please.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Mayor North?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Next is, oh great, go forth and purchase.
After due diligence.
Next, you know that we have a very exciting transportation project going on, our drug handle project, and we'll be seeing over the next probably 2 years a number of resolutions related to aspects of that. So tonight we have the amendment number 1, actually. This is Nancy Crusher. I guess your microphone fixed. Let's come on up here. Nancy Crusher, City Engineer, Public Works Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we brought to you amendment number 1 to the local agency agreement between ODOT and Oregon City for the construction of the drug handle project, which is funded through the 2009 Oregon Jobs and Transportation Act funds. And it's been quite a labor getting it to where we think it needs to be. We started with a local agency agreement to establish what we thought was going to be the total, the story in terms of at least getting the design completed using the previously identified funds. And then when the construction funding became available, then we needed to amend our previous local agency agreement to cover the construction. And we've had a very thorough review by ODOT, a thorough review by Oregon City staff and the City Attorney's Office. So we are comfortable with what we're putting before you this evening.
Okay, questions of Nancy about this first amendment? Not then, may I have a motion for adoption? Commissioner Stevens, your name remains there, so I'll call you.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Nocita, seconded by Commissioner Neely for this amendment. Nancy, what? Comment? Questions? Seeing none, the vote please.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
And Mayor North?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Next, we have more purchases, and this is wetland credits from Foster Creek Wetland Mitigation Bank and Mud Slough Mitigation Bank.
Right, correct. Part of the drug handle project it does have some impact on wetlands. They're not particularly apparent in that area, but we've done a thorough analysis of the streams, ditches, and existing wetlands, and have identified some that would be permanently impacted by the project. Not to be confused with floodplain mitigation we're doing in the old wetlands that are in horrible condition that were backfilled with logging debris, but these are impacts that we could not mitigate on site due to lack of space. And so we are going through the wetland mitigation banks that are under the jurisdiction of the Corps of Engineers and the Division of State Lands. And essentially what you do is you buy credits to make improvements elsewhere where they're more meaningful. And the cost of our mitigation is about $260,000. I know it's here somewhere, but and that basically is the trade we make from mitigating on site to mitigating in another location. And the reason why we're bringing this to you is because the funds have not been released. The $22 million has not been completely made available to the city. So we will be paying for this out of our transportation SDCs, and then we will be reimbursed by the JTA funds in January. And we believe that the risk of not being reimbursed is very, very low.
This is the first map I've seen the new road on.
Yes.
Questions by commissioners? Commissioner Neely.
I think originally we were discussing this, we were talking about potentially creating an area I call a detention area between 205 and the tracks in that area you were speaking about, the old Stinson site. Are we still going to do that? I mean,
Yes, that's kind of like, well, we're doing our floodplain mitigation, and that's what we're excavating
Yes.
to mitigate the impacts of the filling we're doing. But in addition to just excavating it, we're doing that kind of as a little bonus, is doing a pretty incredible planting, vegetation, maintenance effort there to restore it as a wetland. That does not count as mitigation for these.
My question is, does this have the potential of creating credits for ourselves that could be used for other purposes?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so, I visualize that you're creating a floodplain capacity when you do that.
Because
it's kind of a bank.
Yeah, that is not considered the wetland mitigation for the wetlands we're impacting by the project.
Yeah.
Commissioner Nocita.
Yeah, I actually do have a concern about this proposal, and what it comes down to is spending our local dollars at home. I can't see the logic in spending $260,000 into a wetland mitigation bank that may, lead to some improvements in a wetland down in Albany or
Well, these are local. These are in the Willamette, in the Portland area.
Okay, well, be that as it may, it doesn't sound like they're in Oregon City. And I can think, just off the top of my head, plenty of places within town that we could spend $260,000 to enhance our watersheds and our wetlands here in Oregon City. And I'd much rather prefer that we do that. I mean, just the area between I-205 and the Union Pacific Railroad, I think that's a terrific project. But I don't think, from my recollection of the presentation that was made on this whole jug handle project several months ago, that project on the old Stinson site was going to be the full extent of that area. It was going to be a portion of it, but not the full extent of the area. And I don't see why we couldn't spend this money here, expanding that project. If it's going to be that great, I'd rather see more of it within I-205 and the Union Pacific Railroad. I don't know what the timelines are on this. I just was chatting with Alita before this meeting, and she said things are on a pretty tight timeline. And I don't want to upset that, but I don't think this. I mean, I can accept, as an environmentalist and someone who's a watershed planner in my previous life, that sometimes you have to impact wetlands, but I think it should be possible to, move ahead with the project, and while we do that, analyze how we're going to mitigate the wetlands, whether it be through purchasing wetland mitigation credits for something outside of Oregon City, or using that money on something terrific within Oregon City, and I'd much rather spend that money within our city limits.
From what I understand, we don't. This was selected as we have. These are official wetland mitigation banks, and they are, from what I understand, they're in areas that are beneficial to the Willamette River, which is what we are concerned with. In terms of timing, this is the direction that the project team and Mason Person Gerard recommended for the project. I think they feel like you get the most bang for the buck. This is what the Corps of Engineers and the Division of State Lands has approved, and that's what is being permitted. And as far as I know, having this permit completed and making this deposit for those wetlands is essential to getting our environmental approvals to move forward with the contract and stay on our schedule, which is a tight schedule. So this is an accepted form of wetland mitigation by the Corps and DSL. This is what we've worked with them very hard to come to this conclusion. And I think in starting over again and looking for wetlands in Oregon City to mitigate would be a very, very major delay to the project. Because those are very complicated discussions, as you probably know. But getting these permits takes months and months and months. And this is who we've worked with to come to this conclusion.
Commissioner Neely.
I can see Commissioner Neceda's concerns. I guess the question I would pose is, the wetland we're mitigating for, are they directly connected to the Clackamas River, do you know?
Well, I might need a minute. I think they might
Foster Creek Stream.
probably
No,
split.
the wetlands we're mitigating for, the ones in Oregon City, I'm talking
It's
about.
probably split between Abernathy and Clackamas. So Abernathy goes to Willamette. And I could spend a minute to review this document if you'd like me to and come back in half an hour.
I'm going to ask, are you responsible for the next item, Nancy?
No.
Can I suggest that we take a minute with that, because that might make me feel a little bit more comfortable. So if you could take a look at that.
So you want it?
Yeah, the question is, I mean, just by the names of these mitigation areas, I would presume they're areas that are perhaps accessible for rearing or something else.
Oh, you're just the mitigation locations where they're located.
Right.
Okay, yeah. I can determine that.
So
Thank you.
can we come back to something?
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, let's then just postpone the discussion on that one, and we'll move down then to resolution 1031, which is the adoption of the manual for boards and commissions. This is something new. Nancy, are you?
I am.
Nancy, I'd take care of us on that.
Okay, so at the last work session, the commission reviewed the draft of the training manual for the boards and commission members. And at that time, you only had 2 changes in the manual, and they're mostly addressed on page 7. They're the changes are tracked there, so you can see it at the bottom of the page. The changes were made just as you requested. And then the other comment Commissioner Neely had was a concern that he wanted to make sure that citizens were welcome to make comments and that their voice was heard. And if you turn to page 31 of the manual, there's a whole section on public comment, and I'll just read it briefly in case you can't get there quick enough. It says, citizens are welcome to present information or raise issues relevant to the city during the citizen comments portion of the agenda for issues that are not related to an item on the agenda. They're allowed up to 3 minutes to speak and are asked to complete a comment card prior to the meeting and so forth. So there is a section in the manual that allows for the public comment. So unless you have any further questions or comments, I'm willing to make more changes if you see fit.
This essentially codifies what we've pretty much current practice. We've never had it before, so I appreciate you pulling this together. Commissioner Neely.
That language is sort of like the language that the Policy Advisory Committee uses. The thing is, there's never an opportunity on the issues that are on the agenda for the citizens to comment on it. They can only comment on things ahead of time that are not on the agenda, and they never have the opportunity to comment during the period of time that items are discussed. And this is sort of like that. You say not on the agenda, but there's nothing saying what they can do with items that are on the agenda. And we do that here. And I think it's important that this is done there as well. That there's a time for items that are not on the agenda, but that they are able to speak on items that are on the agenda.
Okay. And it does go on there a little bit to say that an individual wishing to formally address the commission or make a presentation should prepare a written request to staff. And so it does give a direction on how to do that.
But, we don't do that here. I mean, we really don't. People are free to make a verbal comment without putting in a written comment to staff ahead of time. Now, the benefit, of course, to doing that is staff has a chance to respond to the comment without doing something just off the cuff, which is a little difficult. But I still think it needs to be open, and it may lead to a decision of the body to actually postpone a decision until the next meeting. And I guess I like them to have the same degree of public input that we do here at the commission meetings.
Okay.
I think that just will add, all you need to do is add Tim, because I think what he's really talking about is the fact that we're really talking about citizen comments there.
Mhm.
And so to just add a sentence after, not on the agenda, which I'm not actually at 31, let me get back to it here. Then you could add a sentence in there that comment cards also are necessary or
Whether it's on the agenda or not.
About more agenda items, because then it follows that citizens are allowed up to 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. I can easily add that in there.
Any other comments on? I believe we have public comment. There is public comment. I'm happy that I see you there.
Madam Mayor and City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford and I live in Oregon City. I'm just speaking as a citizen tonight regarding this this project. And I had a couple of questions. One is, and my understanding is that this is, as you mentioned, a codification of processes that are going on right now anyway. And I think it's a dandy idea that we have this in some sort of a hard copy fashion. My question is two. One question is, how will this be used insofar as what do you anticipate as distribution? Will it only be available to people that are applying for positions on both commissions? Will this be a handout at the, will there be a stack on the counter because there's bound to be flocks of people that are demanding this document? Go to the bake sale. I don't know, will this be a printed document or will this be something online? I imagine both.
It'll be online too, won't it?
It will be online, and it will be available to all current members and then all new upcoming members as well.
Or anybody else that asks for it.
Well, it's a public document. If
Of
anyone,
course.
that's,
Yeah.
you bet.
We've over the years, I mean, it's nice to have it codified because over the years, especially as mayor, I think mayors maybe have more questions than, because we have to lead and we want to know what procedures are. And so I think we've set together for these 8 years many procedures in place that we like. And we've adjusted and adapted, and it's kind of nice to have them
Documented,
not
yeah.
set in stone. I think that.
Well, that was my next question. My next question is, will there be an established review period for this? Is it going to be every year we'll be looked at again, or?
We sure can look at it every year.
It just seems to me if you had that as a policy in place, and policy is probably too strong, but as a general procedure for a frequent review of this.
I think every 2 years, because that's when elections occur and we have more interest, I think, in processes and procedures. But I mean, every year is fine.
I just like it thought of it anyway. So those are my two questions about its distribution and frequency of review. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you talk?
Yeah, no.
Commissioner Neely.
Well, I have talked, but I want to talk again.
Yeah. Go for it.
Anyway, I think probably, over a period of time, we'll probably be looking at the bylaws of some of the advisory committees. It's been pointed out that to me by our city recorder that the Oregon City Civic Improvement Trust had bylaws that were approved in 1982 and had never been revised. And they're actually inconsistent with our charter at this moment. And so I think we probably need to, with input from the respective advisory committees, but I think we probably ought to review some of those bylaws.
Yeah, we did review this. Did you check with Michelle Benville on that one? Because we had a special session where we worked on bylaws.
I mentioned it to her and she
couldn't find it, huh?
Yeah. Maybe they were never approved, but I did look them up and.
I'll look at my stuff.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on this or any other comments, changes?
Yeah, I'll move,
Okay.
I'll move the approval of whatever it is we're approving.
What do you call it? The Boards and Commissions Manual.
The Boards and Commissions Manual.
Resolution 10-31, Commissioner Neely.
All right, and a second, please. For the whatchamacallit.
Mayor,
Yes.
you have specificity on the sentence that to be added.
Yes.
It would be helpful to have that.
Well,
back.
Including the red line.
Can we have that sentence now?
Yeah, that's, sure.
Well, there's another, the addition.
I kind of just suggest to make it easy to go ahead and put this off to the next meeting, and so you can get wording and you don't have to do it on the fly, even if you're good.
We can do that. It's another item to add to the agenda, but
I don't think it's be a long one.
I'll withdraw my second.
Be okay to put on the consent?
the only real
Can we
thing.
put it on the consent agenda then next time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, with that makes it easy to adopt. Okay. Thank you. Is that all your questions? All right. We're putting stuff off, so let's now go backwards and talk about the wetland credit. So Nancy, come up with your information.
Right. So the Foster Creek wetland bank is in the Clackamas River Basin. It's just straight west of Oregon City, slight up and south of Damascus on the south side of the Clackamas River. And that's where we would be purchasing $250,000 worth of wetland credits due to an impact of 1.43 acres. And then the Mud Slough Wetland Mitigation Bank is in the middle of the Willamette Basin, and that's where we would be purchasing $14,000 worth of wetland credit. So the bulk of it is in the Clackamas River Basin, not in Oregon City.
And I guess my comment, I'll just respond to it simply because I asked you to look that up. These are areas that are probably more important than navigable streams and perhaps the wetlands that are very impacted. That's my guess. And so,
Yeah, there's some pretty significant reports that go with these, and looking at them online, these are like very, very well studied environmental science applied.
So I don't know that there's anything that we would be doing with 260. I mean, we might do things on Abernathy Creek, so I don't want to say that we couldn't do something with the 260,000, but I don't want to do anything that's going to impair this project while we try to figure that out. And it seems like this is basically a requirement for us to deal with and move forward.
Mr. Nzita.
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this, and I'm going to explain why I'm going to vote against it. I don't know what we're doing up here, and why we're investing our time as commissioners when we are presented with essentially non-choices. It's this or nothing. We either approve this or the project doesn't happen, or we suffer. That's not a choice. There's no reason to vote on it. I think I don't see that this couldn't have been presented to us with sufficient time for us to either make a judicious decision or choose an alternative. But the idea that what the bottom line is, you have no choice. I don't know why there's a vote even being taken. So I want to direct a few things, comments, and I'll turn to the city manager on this first. We have discussed on a number of occasions the fact that in the past I was not pleased with having things presented to us as non-choices by the former city manager, and I this is just unacceptable to me, and I'm looking to you, from tonight onwards, because the buck does stop with you, that when if we're a deliberative body, we have to have true choices, and I don't like feeling manipulated that there's just no other thing to do aside from what we're presented with by staff on how they want it done. This is just like one of the.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm not prepared to make assumptions whether that's an accurate portrayal of what happened here or whether it isn't, because I do think one of the choices that you have is, and one of the reasons this is here, if I understand the project planning correctly, the $260,000 that we're fronting on the project is because the project funding from the state isn't going to be available to us until after January. So it's a state project, and it's a state mitigation bank. And my concern is you do have a choice. You could say we don't want to front the money. I don't know for sure at this point whether it would stop the project. So you do have that choice. I don't know that it wouldn't. I don't know what kind of delay it would cost.
I think we had a representation from the Public Works Director.
There's a concern, but you can't verify that. It's just right now it's a concern that we have, but it's not. I don't think it's verified either way.
I do think that if we change course on this permit, it would cost us 18 months to get a new permit, and that would definitely. I guess my only perhaps comment would be, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but we have a very, very qualified scientists working on this project, and they believe this is the best solution for those wetlands, which are not very valuable wetlands on Highway 213 along there. Now, I understand what you're saying, that wouldn't it be great to have a great wetlands project here in Oregon City, but they're not planned, they're not designed, the land isn't selected, we may need to purchase property. So this is something that we can do, keep the project on track, and invest in wetlands that have been very carefully studied, where there are known benefits to what will be the outcome for them. So I feel like there has to be some value, there's a lot of value in the decisions that were made here. And so those decisions were made by the project team, by Mason, Bruce, and Gerard. I didn't go pick which kind of wetland mitigation. We're relying on our consultants to make recommendations to us.
And if I might continue, the other thing, and I empathize with what you're saying, and I understand it, I respect it, I appreciate it. But I think from a staff perspective, we're looking at a project after you folks tell us to go forth and get it done. And there has been several endorsements, I think, of it. And so sometimes on our world, we don't know how much additional detail you want to be involved in, and it's a hard call. I mean, it's more of an art than science. And I would submit that you want to be involved when you want to be involved and you want to feel like you have meaningful choices. But for us, sometimes we're trying to guess when that is, because it's probably not every time. Does that make sense? I mean, it is sometimes hard to predict what is going to be a hot button for somebody and what isn't. But I do understand if you want to have meaningful choices. I think in this case, we don't have an established mitigation bank in the city. And so I love the idea. I think we don't have that bank established. But we could certainly investigate it. I can look into this in greater detail and bring you back a report. But I don't think I don't sense that there was some mission of the staff here to limit your choices to say you're going to have to do it this way or no way, because that's just not what we're focused on. We're trying to get the project done. And I'm sorry it feels that way, because I do understand why you think that it feels that way.
Commissioner Neely.
Well, you do have a choice. I mean, if you reject this, and funding $260,000 to not do that, and then risking, I think, a $100 to $1 match in terms of $22 million project, I think, was a mistake. I believe that probably early next year we're going to have a report coming from Jones and Stokes, which do environmental hazards and so forth in terms of an assessment they've made of the Abernathy and Perrin and Beaver Creek watersheds in terms of what the various barriers there are in terms of anadromous fish and so forth. And I think that could be the basis of us actually developing perhaps a wetland bank that we can talk about. It might involve county lands next to Abernathy Creek. I mean, a lot of potential things, but I agree with that requires some effort and in time it'd be a good project, but I don't think we're at that stage. And I was going to make a motion, but I see Commissioner Smith wants to speak, so I won't.
Commissioner Smith.
I will kind of say that I have in the past had similar concerns that Commissioner Nocita has brought up, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case on this topic. But I don't want to. We're going to have some major projects happening, and big ones that are going to take several years, and they need to be done, and they need to not be delayed anymore. And I'm really concerned about that. So I think I'm okay with this, but I do think that there should be more discussion about ways of doing it in the future, but also we need to make sure that Commissioner Nocita's comments were heard also this evening, because I think that has been an issue occasionally where we felt that way. But so I guess that's all I'll say on that.
Commissioner Neely.
I would go ahead and put forward a motion to purchase wetland credits from Foster Creek Wetland Mitigation Bank and the Mud Slough Westland Wetland Mitigation Bank to comply with the Department of State Lands Permit.
Second.
044900.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Any further comments? Nancy, vote please.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
No.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
And Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 3-1. Thank you. We have before us now the minutes of
I have a
December.
comment before.
Yes, Commissioner Nocita.
If we get an opportunity out of this, I would like to have us start considering from tonight. I don't even know if we need to wait till that report in the spring, because I think there are probably opportunities that are self-evident. And I'll go back to the I-205 railroad area.
No, I don't know. I think that's something that we would be doing in any case. And if I've understood Mr. Creshaw right, that we're actually going to.
No, but the point I made is that we're doing it, but it doesn't encompass that whole area. Even after what we do as part of the Jug Handle project, that area is so big that we could have additional opportunities in that area.
I
would ask that
We are doing a very, very large area in that, but we're not disturbing the things that are intact. We're repairing things that are not intact.
If I might add to this, this almost reminds me of remember we talked about the Habitat Task Force for the Cove area, and this is one of the things we're going to bring forward to you in the retreat as a suggestion, or get some further direction of whether you want to proceed with that. And this time we'll have funding for it instead of just a goal without any funding. And so this might be, it reminds me of a similar concept, because you're looking for opportunities, and that could lead then to an established wetlands bank or some other thing that we would have here in Oregon City, because it would be great to spend the money here. Yeah, thanks.
And that wetlands is actually a very interesting topic. Some of you know I own a farm now as of February, and which is where I grew up, and we're doing some major wetland restoration on it, and there are agencies that help us to do that. So I think it's a really large topic that we can undertake. Okay, now to the minutes of November 3rd. We have a motion for adoption, please.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Nocita on the minutes. Seeing no comments, motion vote please.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Next, under communications, we begin with our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've been pretty busy this week doing performance appraisals on our senior staff members, and some other things I'm working on. In an upcoming agenda, you will be exposed to some work that we've been doing on the business license. And you recall that I created an internal task force because we have 6 levels of review for our business license in Oregon City. Some of our competing cities have 1 level of review. We're going in that direction. I don't know if we're going all the way to 1 level, but we're going a lot closer than 6. So our goal in this task force work, and I have the report here, it's actually pretty detailed in my version, so I've got lots of notes on it. But we will be bringing forth several changes in there to streamline the process so that people can go online and get their review submitted, make their payment, We decided not to have the printable version off the screen because we're afraid that the Oregon City logo and the way the thing looks hanging on the wall might not be very sophisticated. So we think for the $75, which is the entry fee for a business license, they ought to get something that's looks like a real official document. So we're going to do that part. But we're hoping that, now it can take months in some cases to get a business license, and we're going to streamline that considerably. $75 is our lowest and most prevalent license fee. A vast majority of the license fees are in that category. They go up based on numbers of employees. So I think the highest levels are 101 employees and up. We're not going to be suggesting to you many changes in the fee structure, except at the beginning, where for us to actually establish the setup of the account, it costs a little over $100. So we're going to be looking at some sort of a discount if you comply, and then if you don't, we don't have a penalty. That's another thing. So people who are actually complying, and we, as you know from your direction, I think this is one of the things that ended up in the goals list. We don't think our compliance is very good. So what that really means is that it's extremely unfair to the people that are paying, because what they're paying is going to benefit everybody, including those that aren't paying. So we decided that we wanted to use both a carrot and a stick. We've got the carrots in the plan here. We're working on the stick part right now, and we want it to be a soft, small stick that we can start out with gradually and implement over time.
Can we have that in a work session so we can see those?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this will be coming. It's going to be coming up on an agenda. I'm just giving you a little preview on what we've been working on. This project will, I believe, increase your revenues and be much more customer friendly. It also hits your goal 1, building a sustainable future, goal 6, maintaining fiscal health of the community, and goal 2, maintaining an environment for economic success. So that's one of the things you'll be getting a taste of soon. And while I'm on the economy, I had a meeting today that was initiated actually from discussions with the Chamber of Commerce about looking at our fees that we charge for development of a new or expansion of an existing business, to try to come up with some novel approaches. And I don't know that they'll be different than any other city in Oregon, but we're going to be looking at the staff level at things we can do to encourage and incent businesses to come to Oregon City and to grow here. We're going to look at all of our fee structure and try to be creative. We're not going to look at changing SCC methodologies, which can cause a lot of heartburn for the city commission and for the staff. But we are going to be trying to be creative and see what we can do to incent some of those businesses to come here and expand. We had our first meeting with them today with some representatives from the chamber and the business community, and we will be having meetings with them again in the future. When we get some ideas together and we feel like they're acceptable to everyone, we'll be bringing those to the commission as well. Let's see. Also, there is something called the Oregon Business Plan, which is a leadership summit that's going to be occurring in Portland. I've not been to this before.
I've been to it all the years.
Okay. It's been described to me as the #1 lobbying opportunity in the state. I don't know if you can verify that. But Governor-elect Fitzhopper is going to be there, and I believe his economic development staff, some of them that have already been chosen, are going to be there, and I'm going to be there because I want to take an opportunity to meet those people and see what we can do. So that's coming up December 13th, and it's here in Portland. So
yeah, it's always in Portland.
Very important. Very important. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It used to be held in January after the incoming group came in, and then they moved back to December. But it's well attended. I don't know, 5,000 people or something like that. So your networking will be busy.
And I'm not sure if the staff have anything for reports. Oh, yeah, that's great.
May I need to slip out, so may I just insert at the risk of interrupting? I have an appointment to make tonight, and that would be Dan Holiday to the Clackamas Cable Access Board, and I don't know the term, beginning tomorrow? Beginning today through the 31st. The 31st of 2012. Okay, thank you. So that's basically all I had besides January 15th. Mark your calendars for a bridge event celebrating, or whatever you want to do, commemorating the closure of the Arch Bridge. It's being planned by the Lama Falls Heritage Area Coalition and with ODOT, of course, in the two cities and all the other partners. So
So, yes, you wanted to
Just
say?
one final thing. Nisita, I believe it was in August at one of your commission meetings, brought up the concern about safety on Highway 99 in the Kanema region, and I know some of the Kanema residents have also appeared here on multiple occasions and expressed similar concerns. And so attached to, well, in front of you now, your dais, is a letter from the Public Works Director Nancy Crusher to ODOT expressing those concerns, and if you look at paragraph 2 and 3 in particular, you will see that she's sharing the concerns that were raised with you, and we will, of course, let you know when we receive a response back from them as well. You also might notice that on the back, there's a whole list of ODOT Oregon City projects that we are dealing with ODOT, so they are how do I say this? We are demanding a lot from them as far as service levels, and we are, I think, busy furthering our partnership with ODOT, trying to make some of these projects happen. But we look forward to getting a response back, and when we do, we'll share it with the commission.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you for this.
And that's all I have here.
Okay, well, reports.
I have not a report, but I just wanted to say a few things about several things that hit me tonight. For the last 5 or 10 years, I've been dreaming about a lot of things in Oregon City, and 39 police officers, I thought I'd never see it. The windows coming out of the Ermatinger house, I thought I'd never see it. Some things are starting to happen, and I just really appreciate that it's happening. And, you know, it's just nice to see something that you know was needed for so long to start happening. And I know we've kind of juggled a lot of different things, but eventually you have to kind of prioritize and resort things, and I just don't know what to say. I mean, I'm really in shock by a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years, and I'm really glad that those two issues specifically are being addressed on this specific day. And so I really appreciate that. So thank you to all the staff. And Scott, I know I've talked to the Hardings, and they feel very, I don't know that I've talked to them much where they've felt really good about what the city is doing, and they do feel really good about what the city is doing right now, and they feel that, Marge's saying that's not true. That's not true that you, my God, make sure she says the right thing. Well, I'm sorry, she's probably saying she's not that she hasn't been pleased with the city in the past. Yeah. In terms of specifically fixing the house, I'll say. But I mean, and we've always debated kind of on the quick fixes and what can be tackled at various times. But this is the first time that I really feel that it's being taken seriously, and that things are happening. And I think that as we get involved in it more, we're going to realize how desperate really the house is in need of help. And I think right now we have an event kind of scheduled coming up, but if the event doesn't happen because we have to fix the house, then that's what has to happen. With the floor kind of coming down on the second floor, I mean, and not maybe even being able to have people up there, I mean, that's pretty major. And I'm just thankful. It's a huge asset for our city, and I think that people forget how important that house is, and it's by far more important. I shouldn't say that; I'll get in trouble for that too. But in terms of the McLaughlin House, it's older. It has a huge amount of history. And, you know, the McLaughlin House is finally in a place that we can drive by it and say, this is amazing. And that the McLaughlin House is being taken care of. And now if we can get the Ermitinger House on the right track towards that direction. And good job for the police chief too. I mean, I've said that before, but the walking around town, driving around town, you see police everywhere. It didn't stop someone from breaking the windows out of my car and stealing my computer, but the visibility around town is just amazing, and it just makes you feel. I would be, you know, out around and see one or two police cars and just worried about what happens when someone called the police, how long it would take someone to be there, and that we actually have our own police backing our police in the need when they need it, and just the amount that just the shift change did. You know, it's the police department has come so far in the last 2 years, and I just am so thankful. We can move on to the next thing, which is the library. And I just want to say, when we bought that piece of property in Kenema, is that maybe a library site? I don't think it is. Forget it. All right.
Well, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Steve. I want to indicate my appreciation for you choosing your words carefully, not saying the Ermitinger the big North McLaughlin House.
I need to go back to where I wrote everything down before I spoke. Sometimes it's nice to just let it come out the way you feel it.
Commissioner Steve.
I have one item I'd like to talk about briefly. I attended on Monday educational seminar on economic development sponsored by the Oregon League of Cities and held in conjunction with the meeting of the Oregon Association of Counties. And we've got a lot of terrific ideas that I will be noting and maybe chatting about at the retreat or as the new year begins. But one quick idea I would like Grace this evening with Mr. Grantlaw and Mr. Frazier, because I think it just seemed like such a high return for a very small investment. And what the discussion was about was websites. And the Mr. Jordan, who is a colleague of Mr. Frazier, who gave his presentation, was talking about how firms choose cities to locate in. And he made the point that if you're contacted, you're not being selected. You're not up for possible selection. You're up for possible unselection. If they get to the point where they're serious enough to call you and inquire that the background research has already been done, and they're just calling you to see if there's something that is a deal breaker for them as far as your city goes. I thought that was a really interesting point. And what they mentioned in particular, as again, it's something that's not. It seems simple, but maybe it's more complicated than my impression of it is. But one of the things that he recommended highly was that a city should have a good website page as far as really key fundamental economic development and business information, because those people in San Francisco or wherever are looking on websites throughout the state or the various cities and deciding what to do. And they mentioned the Albany-Millersburg Economic Development Partnership as an example of a terrific website. And believe it or not, Clackamas County is a very good economic development website. and we still have the glow of our award-winning website team that's been recently recognized statewide as being excellent. So I just wanted to kind of like float that idea right away as something that I think again could be a very high return for us.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And previously I managed, we actually really boosted the power of our economic development effort through a website. I think we have some more work to do here on our web presence. I think we have a good site and a good presence, but I think the economic development portion of it is not quite as robust as I'd like it to be. And this is almost hard for me to believe that you're mentioning that today, because this afternoon I met with our economic development manager and going over his evaluation and talking about future goals, and that was one of the things we discussed, is how to buttress the information that we have on there and have a little bit more of a presence in economic development. I also want to condense it into a package, so there's a menu of things, services that we and or the county provide with a direct link to those services. So appreciate you bringing that up, and I guess it just confirms that we're thinking similarly on that. So.
Just a couple of things on my part. The looking at the spreadsheet I'll be sending out to the members of next year's commission in terms of them making selections of alternatives of boards and committees that we have elected officials sitting on for them to designate what they might be interested in. The reason I'm held up a little bit is I want to make sure that I get the current times for those meetings, because different people are going to have different schedules, and I want to get that into the spreadsheet. I hope to have that out in the next couple of weeks. And I'm also sitting with the various advisory boards and to work out with them their procedures for making interviews or recommendations for appointments to the various boards. And I would like to sit in on those interviews if the respective boards are making them. Not so much to make comments, but just to see what the interview process is and to see what the responses are. And that's all I have to say at this point. And with that, is there any reason I can't hit this down? Go. No. Where does it sit? Executive.